Hey guys, before we start the video, I just want to say thank you so much for all the support. I recently got accepted to YouTube's partner program, and you've probably seen an ad at the beginning of the video. So now you guys are supporting me in more ways than anything. I also have more opportunities to make more content for you guys now that I've got an income coming in from this. So I'm going to try really hard to make some videos for you guys, and I just want to thank you guys so much for everything. This has been an incredible year. Alright, let's get into the stories. I'll set up the background quickly as to not drag out the story. I live in Chillicothe, Ohio. We're a small city just inside the population threshold to be classified a city, but small enough to have a small town atmosphere. The last few years, though, the city has been growing, and with the growth has come, of course, more and more big city problems. The crime rate has increased, including a good deal of drug and sex trafficking. And we recently got some dark publicity due to some woman who has gone missing. I even went to high school and had a class with one of the missing women who turned up dead. But this story isn't actually about that. I just wanted to spread the word more about two who may still be alive. In Chillicothe, there's a levee running along the river that runs through the middle of town. The bike path on top of the levee is simply called the flood wall, and it's good for joggers, bicyclists, and people walking their dogs. During the day, it's closed after dark, which doesn't stop some people from going for a stroll at night. Most of the path is open, with no cover, and a good view from the surrounding roads and houses. But some parts are really heavily wooded, and one has more secluded portions of the path is actually a few hundred yards from a 24-hour gas station and a busy road. The trees are just so thick that you can't see the path all the way. So earlier this summer, I just got done hanging out and playing video games with friends, and was on my way home, and that's when I decided to stop and get a can of Arizona tea. That was sometime around 10:30 p.m. I parked my car on the edge of the parking lot, and instantly was buried in my phone as I walked in the gas station, replying to texts I'd received while driving. As soon as I entered the store, I looked up and saw a small crowd gathered at the register, staring over my shoulder outside. The cashier was on the phone with 911, telling them a guy had been stabbed. I whipped around, and sure enough, outside there was a guy on the ground with maybe 3 or 4 people gathered around him. He was almost on the opposite side of where I parked, and no one was yelling or running around frantically. But I still felt like a dumbass for not noticing something was happening. I'm not sure exactly why, but I instinctively walked outside to see if anyone needed help, and quickly realized that no one was helping the guy laying there. I've been in EMT basic classes before, although I've never been certified. I knew at the very least to apply pressure until the ambulance got there. I pulled my hoodie off my back and folded it up, and started applying pressure to where it looked like he was bleeding from, on his abdomen. It was only about 3 minutes or so before the police showed up, and they started taking the guy's statement and getting the description of the attacker while I was still applying pressure. The poor guy was barely talking and kept groaning and growling in pain, so I helped translate for him to the cops, so he didn't have to speak so loud. He had been walking on the flood wall alone when a guy jumped out and stabbed him 3 times in the gut. He ran and stumbled out of the woods and across the road to the gas station, where 2 other guys heard him call for help, then collapse. They'd been on the flood wall right before him. The attacker probably opted not to jump them since they had outnumbered him. Maybe. Thankfully, the ambulance wasn't far behind the police and soon made it, and I let the real EMTs and medics take over. I looked down and saw my hand smeared with blood and started getting woozy. The adrenaline was wearing off, and now I realized what was going on. I cleaned up and gave my statement, and the other police searched the area. I think the creepiest part of this, for me, was knowing the man was just stabbed. The cop taking his statement was adamant on asking what the attacker wanted. Money, drugs, something. The guy who was stabbed promised the cops that the attacker never said a word, before, during, or after the attack. Personally, I think it was probably still an attempted robbery, but it gives me chills that there was no demand. The attacker just tried to kill the guy, never give him a chance to surrender what he had without being hurt. I know that's much more common in big cities, but this was a big moment for me, and it was the exact moment I stopped feeling safe in my town. We weren't without violent crimes over the years, but major violent crimes were so few and far between, until very recently, that I sort of subconsciously decided it couldn't happen to me or around me. I guess seeing the guy with all the pain and seeing the wounds when the medics cut off his shirt made it all very real for me. There's an article about the stabbing in the Chillicothe Gazette. It mentions my involvement, but not my name, which is perfectly fine with me. I don't want recognition. I just wanted to share the story since it all still bugs me a little bit. I guess it was just a jarring experience to stop for a drink and suddenly be leaned over a stabbing victim. The detective I spoke to later told me that the man who was stabbed was talking in the ambulance, and they were thinking he would be alright. He was taken to Columbus Hospital as a precaution. There isn't any trauma centers at the hospital in town. I searched to try and find an update on him and the story as a whole before I posted here, but I couldn't find anything. The police never followed up with me after that night. I don't think they would, and I don't think they ever caught the attacker either. Just be safe out there, guys. I'm going to keep this shorter than expected. About 30 minutes ago, I was sleeping in my bed because I needed to get up early for tomorrow. It was at least 10 p.m. and I fell asleep. I woke up at 11:20 p.m. to use the restroom. My mom was in the other bathroom shower at the time, also getting ready for bed. I heard footsteps coming from our guest room. I thought it was my mom hopping out of the shower, so I really wasn't worried at the time. After I finished doing my business, this intruder must have heard me flush the toilet. I got back to my room and realized the footsteps weren't my mom. It was a man who was to be in his late 30s in my room. I panicked and I yelled at him. He ran out of my room and ran the way he came in, which was the guest bedroom door. I walked to my room to see if anything was missing. He took my iPad, my phone, and my wallet. I panicked and told my mom. When she was out of the shower, so we called the police. 4 police cars had shown up, and they asked if we're okay, and asked us all these questions about did we know this man, or what did he look like. I told them what he looked like from what I saw, and didn't know the man. The police had to go back to the police station to get some equipment to do an investigation. They are on their way back to our house now to do it tonight. Tonight was so terrible and terrifying, I'm still shaken up and I feel like crying. To the man who broke in my house on Easter Eve, let's not meet again. When I was around 11 years old, my parents left me in the care of my grandmother and aunt. I never had any freedom with my parents. Even though I was very young, they didn't let me have any play dates with my friends. When they left, I had some more freedom. A couple years passed when I was around 16 years old. I started talking to this boy. Even though I had a lot more freedom, I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend. We'll call him Daniel. I met Daniel at a grad party from one of my cousins. He added me on Facebook and we started talking. I gave him my number and we talked from morning to night for about a week. This is because I had to go visit my parents. They lived in a different country and there's no cell phone reception where they live, so I let him know that. He was okay with it and I left for 2 months. When I came back, we started to talk again. I used to have a bad habit of feeling bad for people. Too much empathy. I would always think the best of someone and give them the benefit of the doubt. I had heard many things and just brushed it off, as people spread rumors. To this day, I regret not listening to what those people had to say. Since my grandma was so strict, he snuck into my room through my window a couple of times. He was small enough to fit through it. We only dated for about 2 weeks before I started to notice some red flags. First, I noticed that he was drinking and smoking a lot, to the point where he wouldn't remember anything the next day. Then he started texting and hanging out with this one girl. I told him I didn't like that and he didn't really care. I kind of let it go and someone told him that I had cheated on him with someone. He's not too important, but we'll call him Kevin. These things weren't true. Something snapped in him and he started calling me like crazy and was picking a fight with Kevin. He texted me telling me what had happened and I broke it off with Daniel. I'm a very, very light sleeper. The smallest noise wakes me up. A week later, I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of my phone ringing over and over. I had about 12 messages from the girl that Daniel had been hanging out with. She was trying to pick a fight with me. I was really tired and awoke from my slumber, so I responded back. And I understand, don't fight fire with fire, but I did. I said some really mean things to her, because she had 1, woken me up, and 2, tried to confront me for things I didn't do. I silenced my phone and went back to sleep. I woke up to so many messages from Daniel asking me why I went out of my way to fight with her. I didn't answer because I was over it. I just left him unread. This angered him. He continued to call and send me messages, so I blocked him. I thought this was the end, but it wasn't. There was a party near my house and he happened to go. I knew about the party, but I didn't want to go. Not because he would be there, but because I was tired and wanted to sleep. Around 1 a.m. I heard something at the window, and I heard it slide open. I was terrified and saw a dark figure crawl inside. I kept my phone near me at all times, and I'm thankful for that because I immediately turned on my flashlight and saw that it was Daniel. I then remembered that I had forgotten to lock my window that day. I asked him what the hell he was doing, and he told me he needed to talk to me. I tried to remain calm because he was severely intoxicated. In a hushed voice, I told him that he needs to get out because I didn't want to speak with him. I was trying not to wake anyone. I don't know what to do, and he asked if he could just sleep, and I reluctantly agreed. Not because I felt bad, but because he was drunk, and I was afraid of what he would do if he got mad. I pretended to sleep, and he tried to wake me. When I didn't give him any attention, he left, and I locked my window right after. I didn't tell anyone because I was scared that I'd be in trouble. A couple weeks passed, and I didn't hear anything from him. I thought that maybe he had moved on. I was over at my aunt's house with my cousins. We were always close and hang out as often as we can. It was around 11 p.m. and I heard my phone ring. I thought it was my grandma calling to make sure I was okay, but it was a random number unknown. I didn't pick up because my cousins and I were playing a game. A couple seconds later, it rings again. It was the same number. I didn't answer. It happened 2 more times before I finally picked up. "Where are you?" I heard the voice say, and I quickly connected it to Daniel's distinct high-pitched voice. I told him, "It's none of your business," and I hung up on him. A few weeks later, I received a message from a random number. He soon told me that it was Daniel. This was the 3rd number he got because I kept blocking him. He told me that he was joining a gang and that he had a gun and a knife. That message terrified me and made my blood run cold. I messaged one of his friends to make sure that someone knew what was going on, and to get him to stop. He was very concerned for my safety and put a quick stop to it. Daniel's 5'2" and about 135 pounds. His friend was 6'1" and 190 pounds, and could easily overpower him. The message just stopped for a while. 6 months passed, and I didn't hear anything from him. One day, my cousins and I decided to go to a carnival near my house. After we stopped by a birthday party that we had been invited to, I walked in saying hi to everyone. I looked up and saw him, which made me extremely uncomfortable. I was only there for about 3 minutes. I only wanted to drop off the gift and leave. The next morning, I went over to my aunt's house again and found out that Daniel had gotten so drunk to the point where he started crying and screaming my name to everyone. My family saw it as an innocent thing, but little did they know what was actually going on. Finally, I decided to tell my aunt about what was going on and tried to file a restraining order against him, but was denied because we didn't have sufficient evidence that he was a danger to me. Something like that. My mom tried to turn it against me and say that it was my fault that he was obsessed with me and threatened me. I found out the reason he had called me that one day asking me where I was. It was because he'd broken into my room and was looking for me. I'm thankful my cousins decided to hang out that day, because who knows what he could have done that day. He tried to pick a fight with my boyfriend and female cousin several times. The police don't help either because they think we don't have sufficient evidence to file a restraining order, even after all these incidents. A couple years passed and the friend that helped me when I was scared of him texted me, just to catch up, and it turns out that Daniel stole his phone to text me. I know this because he told me that he had done that. I couldn't get away from him either because he lived so close to me. I recently found out that he did the same thing to another girl, and she was able to successfully file a restraining order against him. Things have stopped, and I've avoided every event that he's present at. I don't understand why he got so obsessed. We dated for less than 1 month, and didn't do anything significant. So to my crazy ex-boyfriend, let's not meet again. When I was 18, and about 5.5 months pregnant with my daughter, me and my daughter's father were staying with my now father-in-law. Let me set the scene for you. This man has a technically 3-story home in North Carolina. It has 2 actual levels and a third that acts as a basement. My now husband and I spent a lot of time in the basement because his dad kept the house on like 80 at all the time. And the only place in the house that was relatively cool was the basement. On the basement level there was a den and the laundry room. Both are eerily creepy in a I don't like being down there by myself kind of way. We'd been staying with his dad for about 3.5 weeks at this point, and my husband was downstairs in the basement smoking a blunt. I was down there just chilling watching a movie. His father calls him and tells him to go upstairs and to help him with the dishes and a few other things. So I'm downstairs alone because honestly I fucking despise my father-in-law. I'm just chilling watching this movie, and I hear my husband call me from the laundry room. I heard him come down the stairs, and those stairs creak more than anything I've heard in my life. So I thought it was odd, not to mention I could still hear him upstairs talking to his dad. At first I thought I was dead-ass tripping, but I kept hearing him call me, so I got up thinking maybe he wasn't upstairs after all. Don't question me, pregnant mush brain is definitely a thing. I get up off the couch and walk out of the den door and down the hallway to the laundry room. I took the laundry room and it's dark as fuck, so I'm like, I'm just tripping, and as I go to turn to head back to the den, I hear him call my name again, but this time it gives me goosebumps, and all the hair on the body is like standing straight up. I turn on the light to the laundry room and he's sitting at the table. It's not till he turns his face to me that I really realize that it's not my husband. My husband has a face tattoo, and it's on his left side of the face. When the him in the laundry room turned, it was on the right side. The look in his eyes was vacant, and I literally had a moment of, holy fuck, I'm gonna die. I run upstairs. My husband was getting ready to come back downstairs. I told him he has 45 seconds for us to get the fuck out of the house, before I lose my shit. He asked what's wrong, and I told him I'd tell him when we'd get out. I told him and he flipped his shit. He had seen the same thing, but with me, 2 days before in the bathroom. Needless to say, we called my sister and dad, and they came to pick us up and we stayed with them. Scariest shit I've ever gone through. I bet it's late, but here it is. When I was younger, I spent the day helping a neighbor rake leaves on his property. He was friendly with my family, so he walked me home to say hi to my parents. We walked into the house and heard my mom upstairs talking. It sounded like she was on the phone and walking around. I called for my dad. No answer. My neighbor says, well, it sounds like your mom's on the phone. I'll catch someone another time. We say goodbye and he leaves. I go upstairs to see my mom, but I can't seem to find her or hear her anymore. I search the house and it's empty. I'm thinking, did she leave the house while I was saying goodbye to the neighbor somehow? I call my dad's cell phone. My mom didn't have one and he picks right up. I asked him where he is and if he knows where mom went. We're at the store. We've been running errands for a couple of hours. Instant goosebumps. My neighbor and I both heard footsteps upstairs and a woman's voice. No idea of who or what it was, but we both heard it. I waited outside until my parents got home. I randomly remembered this when cleaning out some stuff, and found a wristband I'd had from a kid's hospital when I went as a kid. I was born with a cystic fibrosis, so I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a kid. I'm from Sydney, Australia. This had been in 1998, when Mom came to visit me when I was about 8. She took me to the cafe in a wheelchair with my drip pole, and it was pretty crowded. She had just put me aside of the cafe, and I happily waited while she ordered me a milkshake, and she got a coffee. While she was paying, this doctor, he had an ID and all and stethoscope, bent down to my height and said, "Oh hey, are you for sale? What are you doing sitting there?" I explained I'm with my mom and pointed to her, as she was paying. I got an instant creepy vibe from him. I awkwardly smiled at my mom. I started coughing heaps as the antibiotics I was on at the time were pretty heavy, and with cystic fibrosis, you cough a lot. It's not contagious. The doctor kept looking at me and said, "Wow, you are just so beautiful, and so cute," and patted me on the leg. Looking back at this, now I'm 30 years old. I'm thinking, what the fuck? Mom paid and came and got me. She could tell I was looking uncomfortable, and asked me what the doctor said. She said next time she won't leave me near the magazines and will wait for me around with her to the food counter, etc. Safe to say, it kinda scares me now. If that doctor's still around, I hope he isn't up to anything suspicious or disgusting and using authority of his medical degree. Please, creeper doctor from my childhood, let's not meet again. When I was 13, I went back to visit China for the first time. My mom tutored a kid who was about 16 in Mandarin at the time, and he traveled with us. One day we're going back to where we were staying. My mom's friend, who was basically our guide, suggested we ride the subway. On the subway, we were packed like sardines, and I mean it quite literally. It was squished, and there was a little bit of room between me and my friend. I was looking in the subway window reflection, and I see this man right behind me. He had a strange look to him, and I don't remember much, but he was short and stocky, about my height and maybe 50 to 60. The subway ride was rocky, and I felt the man inch closer and closer to me. My friend noticed this, and he tries to get between me and the man, with little success. He's about 5'10 to 5'11, and I'm 5'4, so I'm assuming it wasn't that difficult, but it was hard to move around. My mom's friend then exclaimed that we got on the wrong stop, and I see the man look over at her. We get off, and he's following us. This time when we get on, my friend makes sure to get between me and him, but I can still see him eyeing me. After we get off, my friend states, "That old dude on the subway was looking you up and down." And I was like, "Dude, really?" I don't know what became of the man, so I don't understand why he'd look at me, of all people. But many relatives say I look Western, which tends to be fetishized in China. Hey guys, I want to thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't yet, please consider clicking that subscribe button icon to get notified of all future videos. I try to post around 5 times a week. And if you have a story of your own you'd like featured on the channel, head over to my subreddit r/GensenOfficial. And if you'd like to have your name featured and have early access to my videos, head over to Patreon, where only $1 a month gets you that and some other fun perks. I've also got merch over on Spreadshirt. I as well offer all my videos and my podcasts that can be found on all major podcast services. All links will be located in the description field. Hope everyone has a good night, and remember, keep it spooky.